Yay!
Have you ever heard of artists like Madion? I kind of have because I met him. Or, is that someone kind of small? How about Martin Garrix? I'll go a little bit more broad. Still not money? What about Deadmau5? He's pretty huge. You don't know who he is.
Yeah.
And what about, here's a one for all those who still haven't gotten one. How about Daft Punk? They're pretty huge. What if I told you that these artists would never be able to perform in a festival setting again because of a bill that was passed in 2003? Hi, I'm Jacob Martin, and this is my presentation on the RAVE ACT. I'm going to start by catching you guys up with the scene that the RAVE ACT is infringing upon, as well as show the somewhat solutions that have been put into action already that can then prevent the RAVE ACT's harsh problems from actually taking effect, as well as also just say what you can do to help fix this problem. Hopefully you guys will have a laugh, so let's get into this. So these four artists are actually all part of a genre of music called EDM. Electronic dance music. Jimmy, can we get something fun back there? Thank you. So EDM is any music genre that is made, is a genre of music that is made with anything that's made electronically for the purpose of dancing. So as those four artists, Daft Punk, Madion, Skrillex, anyone else like that you can think of. However, there's somewhat of an issue where people don't think that electronic music is actual real music because it's created with computers as opposed to traditional acoustic guitars and drum sets most of the time. Now, I'm not going to get into this can of worms, so for now, there will be time at the end of this presentation for those kinds of people to jump out of a window. So, this, as you see here, is the RAVE ACT. It is a bill passed by at the time Senator, now Vice President Joe Biden. And the bill is to prevent the use of ecstasy at concerts, which I am completely for. I don't like doing drugs at shows. I don't plan on doing that. So the bill itself, however, to get people to stop doing ecstasy at concerts, their way of doing this is if one person, even one person, is caught at a concert or festival with any sort of illegal drugs, then the promoter of the festival will be fined $20 million or given a 20-year jail sentence. Seems a bit harsh, don't you think? However, this somewhat is fitting because electronic music and drugs are good friends, unfortunately. So before I continue this segment, I want to just say, drugs are bad, okay? So, as I was saying, drugs and electronic music are quite good friends in that they are often seen together. A lot of the times, ecstasy is common at various electronic music concerts, and it's seen with its more of a quote-unquote street name, Molly. Now, this act, the way that it decides on who does or does not have drugs, is instead not based on a everybody sense, but instead based on a, we think you might have drugs because you look like you might have drugs. That sounds quite a bit similar to racial profiling, which is never seen as a good thing in most circles. Now, also this act with fines of the promoters, this will have major side effects on all the performers that perform at these festivals, in that it essentially takes away their summer job and their main way of, like, one of their main forces of income. However, as I mentioned before, that drugs and electronic music were common, that's true for almost every genre. Like, way back in the blues and jazz era, alcohol was very common at a lot of concerts. And then we moved sort of to the hippie era, you know, peace and love, man, peace and love. We then got a lot of LSD. And then during the rock and roll era, sort of the 80s and 90s, we had quite a bit of cocaine usage, was very common. And then now that it's like from the 90s to now is electronic music has the use of ecstasy. Now, throughout all of these scenes, marijuana has been quite prolific. In fact, so much so that a lot of states, there's a couple of states were just like, you know what, let's just make this legal. It's not hurting anybody. Now, there have been some solutions put in place to solve these problems to make sure these festivals will continue to exist. Things like they have healthcare workers at all the festivals, as well as they have cool-down stations and hydration stations and such. However, what I think they should add is into a regular school curriculum, they should teach drug safety as opposed to drug abstinence. Because look how well abstinence-only sex ed works. And now, my favorite part of this presentation, the effects of the RAVE Act. So here, as you can see, is a map of the U.S. with a bunch of little festivals plotted all over it. So say we got this little festival here, right? Say one person gets caught in ecstasy, promoter gets fined $20 million. Boom, goes away, not enough money to put it on the next year. So everybody goes to this festival who would have went to this one, because that's closer by. But it turns out, guess what? Same promoter, so it goes away too. So now everybody on the west side, for the most part, has to go to this festival if they want anything big. Well, that festival then suffers from overpopulation and cannot function, so it goes away too. Now everybody's got to go to the east, way over here to their EDC and Tomorrow World, except for those two festivals both suffer from overpopulation because the entire western part of the U.S., who cares, is all going over there. So they both go away from overpopulation. So now all we got here is just Lonely Ultra, which, great festival, I'll give it that. It's a nice festival. However, once again, like the other ones, it meets a similar fate with overpopulation. And now, would you look at that? There's no more big EDM festivals. And just look at the devastation here. But the question is, do you know who's really mad about all of this? Me. I'm mad about this. The reason why is the same reason that I chose this topic. Because I myself am a DJ and performer that would love to perform at pretty much every festival and more that was listed here. So what I've done to try to bring people up to speed on this was I attempted 3 times actually to get a concert at the Foundation nightclub. I know the promoter. I met him at an event. And I was going to do a benefit concert with a couple other bigger names. I didn't get around to finding out who yet, but it was going to be like a couple of bigger names, and then I would be one of the acts, and at the end of my set, I would close out and give a small speech about how the RAVE Act could essentially end what was going on that night. However, this did not work. As I mentioned, I contacted him 3 times, could not get it to work. However, I am still trying. Hopefully this concert will happen in the future. And the question is, what can you do as someone who either likes electronic music or has a friend who either makes electronic music or is a DJ or any other person like that? Donate to the Amend the RAVE Act group. They're fantastic, and they also have a petition there to sign that will let you then, once the petition has enough forms, they will in fact amend the RAVE Act to the site's changes, which will then hopefully make it a little more lenient towards those promoters. Give them maybe a hefty chunk, a little, nothing too serious though. Any questions?
Are there any festivals left at all? There's probably smaller ones, aren't there?
All those major festivals that I showed, they still exist. There was a rough simulation as if the act, got out of hand and they started to really enforce it. This bill is kind of shoved in the back of people's collective memories currently in the House of Representatives and Congress.
Yeah, so that is my question. Was it passed, and then is it being enforced? Because you can have a law in the books, but if it's not being enforced, then it's just kind of sitting there in waiting, perhaps waiting for someone to enforce it, and then someone else to have a contrary legal case to say, why are you singling us out? The honky tonk bars they're doing pills in those bars too, or at the rock concerts. How come you're picking only us out?
Well, the bill itself was passed.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's lightly enforced. It's only enforced, say, when something gets out of hand, or say someone God forbid,
Dies.
dies at a festival, which is like very rare. That's like a freak accident. Never actually really ever happens that often. Yes?
It almost seems like this RAVE Act is just taking something and making a law that punishes everybody for what a few are doing. I don't think that's fair.
Kind of like, you know, we're all on this boat together. If one guy pokes a hole in it, then we're all screwed kind of thing.
Is there any
And
way?
I think they should look more at these laws and this is, you know, every time a law is passed, our freedoms are restricted.
So, is there any way to control the drug use at these large concerts? Probably not.
A lot of the time they have like, you know, they have quite high-tech drug screenings and such to make sure that no one's coming in with drugs. However, I currently do not know what they do to someone who is inebriated already. I would imagine they just say, sorry bro, you can't come in. Come back when you're like, you know, not high off your ass.
Yay, Jacob. I'm sorry, I was cutting
Since the
off.
law is passed, it seems like a big problem. Is there any way these promoters can get an insurance policy so if they get some, you know, because actually my feeling is the government should be controlling these drugs more than they are. So they're just punishing everybody else, which is not fair. Like you're expressing that now. But maybe if they had an insurance policy that would pay the $20,000 or $20 million, whatever it is, some ridiculous thing.
Yeah, way too high of a price. That's way
Yeah.
more than it costs to put on
You know,
one festival.
It just seems like the punishment does not fit the crime. And I think we have to watch out for that with lawmakers.
It is odd that the same things, perhaps different drugs, but also alcohol that goes on at the rock concerts. Why would they just choose? the
Most
raves?
likely because most people, like, they wouldn't die from drinking too much liquor. I mean, it could happen, but usually they die from, say, something that the too much liquor caused them to do, say, drunk driving or something else. Whereas a batch of bad Molly will kill you. Like, nothing else is needed, it will kill you. Any other questions?
Well, I went to a concert at Benaroya Hall, and there was alcohol being served there.
I would imagine that's more of a light usage of alcohol. More like, you know, you drink a martini listening to the symphony. Yes. As opposed to more like at rock concerts where it's, woo! Drink the beer! Woo! I'm pretty sure it's a bit different of an atmosphere.
Good job.
Yeah, yay, Jacob. Woo! Yes. Yeah.
Joe Biden.
Thanks very much. Yes. Thank you.
Just want to get their name up there.
Yay,
I like
bravo.
the humor.
Yeah.